Welcome to the latest episode of Real Talk. Several weeks ago, I kept hearing the same thing over and over and over again, that there's a must-see movie entitled Bring Her Back that was going to be released soon. Intrigued, I did some research. The moment I realized that this movie was written and directed by Danny and Michael Pilippou, the same twin brothers that created one of my favorite movies of 2023, Talk to Me, I rushed out to see it opening night. I gotta say, I definitely was not disappointed. In fact, it was just the opposite. I was blown away by its originality. Some of the words that have been used to describe Bring Her Back include disturbing, unsettling, visceral, gory, harrowing, intense, dark, bleak, depressing, creative, original, emotionally devastating, character-driven, and well-acted. These two YouTubers from Australia have quickly become my new favorite creative team. So join me to discuss Bring Her Back, Talk to Me, and everything the Philippou brothers have done and plan on doing in the future is film aficionado and friend Luis Ortiz. Luis, welcome to Real Talk, and how the hell are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Rich?
I am doing very well. I gotta say, like, this show, for people who watch this show, normally I do movies that I grew up with. Like, last one I did with James from Love on the Spectrum was Escape from New York and Heavy Metal. This is one of the first times I've done this where a movie blew me away so quickly that it just came out last week or the week before, and I said, we got to do a show on this because these two brothers, Michael and Danny Philippou, have made two of my favorite horror movies. Not even, and I want to talk about this because they're not even really horror movies, and I'll tell you what I mean afterwards. So what was your first introduction to the Philippou brothers and this movie in particular?
Yeah, I mean, so I think Talk to Me had such a big impact when it first released. I think people are always itching for new horror content. I think a lot of people can kind of sense when we're getting some stuff being released that's just kind of like, summer fest, just trying to get those summer blockbuster tickets. Yeah, snooze fest for sure. Talk to Me was one of those films like you can tell there was something unique with it. There was, this creative horror element that people were looking for. So I think to me, like that was that first thing that got me into it. And then to know that there were YouTubers, who started off doing that and then going into that film, it had me intrigued from the start. So I'm happy that was my first introduction to them both.
Yeah, well, I have to say I've done a lot of research in them because whenever I see something I like, I go back and see everything they've done, and I realize that wow, that was their first movie, Talk to Me, and they even said they like a movie that starts off as a drama. It could be a drama, but then they add the horror elements in afterwards. And like with Talk to Me, it was definitely a drama. It was about loss of her father, no, sorry, loss of her mother, and she's depressed. And then they were playing a game, and she saw her mother, and it was just it's such a great movie. But I like the fact that they have all these drama elements. It could be a drama on its own, but then they add that little bit extra because I'll give you an example of what I mean. Sometimes, like when somebody swears for effect, it sounds good once, but then they keep saying the F word over and over again. It just loses its effect. These guys, they have the drama, but then they add these little horror effects. They go over the top with maybe some of the things, but it's not overdone. It definitely fits right into what's going on in the movie, and I don't think they don't do it just for shock value only. They do it to add to and enhance the story.
Exactly. Right. And I mean, we see that again, like you mentioned with the loss of her mother. We feel for this character. These are real life human things that everyone's kind of experienced. So we can automatically connect to those characters. So once we get to those holy shit moments, we really feel for them and we want them to get out of there. We want them to survive. We want them to live. We want good things for these characters. So I think having that nice connection and being able to, revolve the story not around just like this horror element thing that's going on, but these characters are dealing with, real life emotions. We can feel that and we can sense that too. So when shit really hits the fan, we really feel for them, and we want their safety. We want to jump in and help them. So they've done a good job at that for sure.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they said most of these. Well, they've done two movies so far, besides all the YouTube stuff we'll talk about later. But with the two movies were from actual real life experiences. And Danny said the first time for Talk to Me, it came from he was in a car accident and he was petrified that he was paralyzed. He woke up, he was all numbed out on drugs, and then he said his cousin reached her hand out to him, and he said, "Wait a minute, and then they all started clicking together, and that's where he came up with the movie Talk to Me."
Wow.
And that movie originally they wanted to make it, and they were working like they worked on several movies. One was called The Babadook. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I've heard of that one for sure. I think that's definitely on a top horror
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they were working on that, and it was, Causeway Films released that. And so Michael was the driver for the director, Jennifer Kent, and Danny was the lighting assistant. So they learned so much on that movie. And they said Jennifer Kent was so intense, and they said she was like one of the first people they saw that actually cared about what she was doing, so passionate about it. And she wouldn't finish until her vision was complete. And they said they learned so much from her. But when they were making the movie, uh, all these different studios were like, come on, you're not going to make any money, this and that. And then they're like, well, we can do an American version, but we have to use American actors. So
Mhm.
Causeway Films, who released Babadook, had faith in them, and they put the money up. But the funny thing is when I love their attitude, because Sophie Wilde, who plays Mia and Talk to Me, she's
Mhm.
the protagonist. She was not a known actor or main name in Australia, so they said, I don't care. She looks great on film. We're using her, and they did not give them the budget that they were going to give for like a big name actor. Like, we really don't care. So I'm so glad that this is the second we're going to talk about. We'll bring her back too. They stuck to their guns, and it paid off big time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she definitely. I thought about this before too, and it feels more real when you have someone that you haven't really seen before.
Yep.
You know, you have a big name celebrity come in, and it's nice to have an A-list actor step in, and you get the talent. But there's so many actors and young actors and actresses out there that really can shine and put through great performance, and she's proven that. And especially in horror, when you see someone you have characters you haven't seen before, to feel a little bit more real. And I think that's great. And I think both with Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, they've shown that we can have an A-list actor join in and still add on to that film, but have amazing new actors and actresses show up and really shine too, especially in the horror films.
Yeah. Well, I always use this example. Whenever I see Tom Hanks in a movie, I always see Tom Hanks. I don't see an actor. I don't see like the character. I mean, there's some
Right.
great actors like Christian Bale. Doesn't matter what he's playing, he becomes that character. There's some actors
Exactly.
that cannot really do that. But like you said, when I see an unknown, you lose yourself in it. Like, wow, this is real. Like, even though you know it's not real, but it's so
Right. I
convincing.
mean, look at The Rock. I mean, the
Oh yeah.
guys, you look at a movie and it's like, great, it's just The Rock doing something else. Like, it's The Rock as a superhero, The Rock as a construction worker. So it's like, it's The Rock. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
No, no, it's Dwayne Johnson. He really had us
Dwayne
both.
Johnson. Yeah, there you go. I guess if you want to call him that, it's The Rock.
You know what? I was so happy about that because I love hearing these underdog stories. And Michael and Danny Philippou stuck to their guns. The movie was made for $4.5 million. They
Wow.
were courted by everybody. Every studio wanted them after that because it made so much money. It made $91.6 million, I think it was. So they ended up going with A24 because they had the most creative freedom. I just want to go over, I have it written down somewhere. I just want to talk about the different studios that were recording them because there were some big ones. Jordan Peele
I'm
was one of
sure.
them. Let's see. I have a little bit of notes here of all the different things we want to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about. And I can't find the studios right now, but so I'm going through, I'll find it later. But
yeah.
I was just so happy that, I mean, they made seven figures with A24. So it's not like that they were going broke by sticking with A24. But I like the fact
Right.
A24 releases so many movies that nobody would even look at. But now this company is becoming a powerhouse, which I love.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Hereditary,
Yep.
Midsummer, Talk to Me. Now I feel like their list has definitely shown that they know quality horror and quality film, and they're putting out great stuff. So now anytime you see A24 come up with a horror film, there's a very good chance that you're gonna get something new and refreshing, and you're gonna get something good. Talk to Me is definitely they picked the right studio to go with. I think A24 is perfect. It's definitely in their element.
The only thing I'm thinking about is I'm not one of these people, but watching the movie Talk to Me, um, I could maybe get some of that Philippou money. The copyright in my hand. I don't know where they
Hey,
got.
hey, listen, they've I know they got a molded cast somewhere hidden, and now we have to find that because we need some of that money now.
Exactly. So I said, so Michael, Danny, it's nothing personal, but I want some of that Philippou
Listen,
money.
listen, that's and it's due, all right. We know it's there. It's in the numbers, all right.
Exactly. Oh, and I did find what I was looking for. So days leading up to the premiere at the Sundance, they were
Mm,
fielding offers from Jordan Peele's Monkey Paw Productions, Blumhouse, Neon, Universal, Searchlight, Sony. Reps for Spielberg and Stephen King were requesting screening links. And James Wan, who did The Conjuring and so many other great movies, his
wow.
Atomic Monster arranged a meeting. So it was just, and you know who these two remind me of is, are you, well, I know you know his movies, but Robert Rodriguez, who did Spy Kids.
Yes.
Everybody knows him for
Yes.
that, but he started off with this movie that he was just making for fun because it was basically a learning experience for me. He goes, I'm not going to make any money with this. I just want to learn. And so they said, well, he's from Mexico. He's like, maybe I'll get the Spanish market. And he kept on trying it, and they weren't accepting the offers. He brought it to Sundance, and there were so many offers for him. And they said it was he's in the Guinness Book of World Records because it's the lowest amount of money the movie was made for, was $7,000 and picked up
Jeez.
by a huge company, Columbia. So, and these two brothers are the same. And there's actually another commonality. I didn't realize this. Robert Rodriguez got his start and got to raise money by becoming one of these lab rats with pharmaceutical companies. They would inject them with stuff, and then they would do blood work to see. Well, let's see if what kind of effect this drug has on the person. And that's how he bought his first camera. Danny and Michael did the same exact thing, and that's how they bought their first cameras. They were
Wow.
being injected with stuff, and then having blood work done, saying, "Oh yeah, well, your leg's gonna fall off in about a month, but you'll be fine."
That's a horror film in
Yeah.
itself. I think honestly that could be filmed into some that's a pretty good movie idea right there.
Well, it's funny. Robert Rodriguez did make a movie out of that, and what he did was he made a movie with his sons. His son co-wrote it with him, and it's all about that. But then he added, just like the Philippou brothers, he added the horror element to it. And it's I haven't seen it yet. I'm
That
trying to
sounds
find it. It's not
perfect.
really streaming. It was just, but he made it for $7,000. He made it in 14 days. He was just trying to do the same exact thing he did with El Mariachi, which was his first movie.
Wow.
But yeah, so these two brothers are the same way. And you know what I love about them too is they have the best attitude. They didn't become
Oh yeah.
snobbish stars. I've seen so many interviews, and they're just having the time of their life.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean them making YouTube videos and having their YouTube channel, you can tell they were always about fun and just, creative, full control, no matter what they're doing. So they prove they're fun guys. And when you see them in their interviews, they're just like they want to, gross you out. They want to tell you like how visceral they had to get with this film. So it's fun. It's refreshing to see that, and instead of, like you said, kind of like the snobby kind of,
Yeah,
horror film critics and people who are just looking for like the cinematography
yeah,
aspects of it instead of just having fun.
yeah. Well, I'm going to give a perfect example of this. We talked about this off the air, but there's a name, Robert Eggers. Does he bring something to mind? He's the one that did Nosferatu. He's the one that did The Lighthouse. He's the one that did The Witch. I think
Yep.
he's like that. He's more like, excuse me, I'm not making a
Yeah.
film. It's cinema or whatever, vice versa. However it is, he's
Yep.
like above that, and I'm making something that I don't care if you enjoy. You just have to appreciate.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
impression I get.
And at the end of the day, right? Like who's sitting in those seats, at the theater? Like it's gonna be your average Joe like us,
Yeah,
we're just looking to enjoy a movie. We
yeah,
want to have fun. We want to have something that's gonna have a good story. We don't want to be bored and just get cheap jump scares, but we want something enjoyable. So I think, what Philippou brothers are putting out, it's just that. And not to say Nosferatu or Lighthouse, they're not great films. Especially in horror, they're definitely on the creepy side, and they
yeah.
have good stories. And it's just the way, they kind of take it, and I guess there's their way to respect it.
Yeah, I know. I respect it for the cinematography. I respect it for the atmosphere. It's
Right,
just
right.
that a 4 hour movie that could have been maybe an hour and a half, and it still would have been
Exactly. It's just
much
dragged.
better.
It's
Yeah,
dragged out.
yeah. They just and the Philippou brothers. Danny actually said because the actor who played Andy, I forgot what his name is. This is for Bring Her Back. He was saying
Yes.
he goes,
Yep.
I love how fast paced this movie is, and Danny goes, I was just afraid of boring the fuck out of everybody.
Right,
That's
right,
exactly what he said. He goes, I just have to keep putting things in because
right.
they have a great system. I mean, it's amazing, as you said, they started off as YouTubers and they had 1 year of Maps film school. That was it, 1 year, and they learned
Wow.
everything by trial and error, just trying this, doing that. And they met this guy at the Maps film school named Bill Hinsman. And so those Danny and Michael started writing together. And what they do is that Danny writes all over the place, and it's great because both of them have ADHD. But the
Yeah.
mother, when they were young, said, I do not want to ruin your creative freedom. I don't want to ruin what you have. I'm not going to put you on medication. And I think it worked out for the best because they're all over the place, but they're just having fun. They're not,
Yeah.
I don't think it's really hurting them. I don't think it's destroying their health. It's just
Yeah.
maybe but and I think it's actually working in their favor. They said Michael was saying that he stays up for sometimes 3, 4 days, but he said because of that he's able to get all these things done because he wants to edit it immediately. He's all right, let's
Right.
film this, and then they're like showing it the next day to everybody. All right, because then he could say because they only have, especially with a low budget movie like this, they have limited time. They don't have like six
Right.
months to film it. They actually filmed
Exactly.
it I think it said they had 2 weeks of pre-production and then 8 weeks of filming. So really 2.5 months. And so he goes, we just got to go as fast as we can. If we don't like it, we have to do something else very quickly. And an example of that was Oliver, who was a great character. I mean, there might be
Awesome.
spoilers. If people are watching this, if you haven't seen it yet, sometimes if we start talking about something, I apologize. It's not going to ruin the film at all. But Ollie is a great character, and originally he had a whole different look. He had a wig on, and they filmed the pool scene with the cat, and they're looking. Michael's looking at this. Just it's not work. We got to do something. And then they created that whole new look, which it's insane because like he just the eyes alone. He doesn't even have to.
Oh
He
yeah.
barely has any words in the movie at all. But he's just that look will terrify
It's
you.
the look. It's the look. Definitely. I mean, he was fit for that role. I mean, it was perfect. It's a, a young small kid. You think, kids are cute, but I mean, this kid just looked terrifying. He was gonna eat you through the damn screen, you know.
And if he can't eat you, he'll eat himself, which is
Yeah, exactly. Which which was one of I have to say the grossest scene I've seen in a horror film in a long time. It was something. It was
oh, it
something.
definitely was. You know
Oh,
what I love about it is he's only 10 years old. He was 10 years old when they filmed it. Now he's 12. And
yeah.
his parents are actors too, and his father actually played the father of Piper and Andy. He's the one that found the shower.
Wow.
That's the one who played Ali. I can't remember his name. Jonah Wren, I think his name is Jonah Wren Phillips.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so his father in real life, because he and his mother, or his father and mother, are both actors, and and Michael and Danny want everybody to feel comfortable, so he said like for the younger kids, they had the parents on the set just to make sure everything was good,
Right.
and it was funny because Jonah said, he goes, I get scared from Simpsons Halloween episodes. He goes, this is, and so he goes, I don't know, like I watched The Shining at one time on my phone, but it sort of ruined the effect because I'm watching it on my phone. He goes, everything scares me. But and it was when you know what's great about this because he was too young. They had the Australian premiere. He was too young to get into the premiere, so the two brothers went out with him and their parents out to dinner, so he didn't feel left out. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
But he said another scene that was a big gross out for some, and I just started clapping and laughing. It was because I was watching everybody's reaction. Was the knife chopping scene in the counter?
Yeah, oh man. I mean, with that scene, like if we're gonna talk about it,
Might as well.
yeah, we may as well go into that because I mean that in itself, as that being the true first shit's going down scene, for it to pan over and you hear just the chomping of the cantaloupe of this melon, and then you hear the metal going, it's I already had the image in my head. And when they panned over, it was much, much worse than I could have ever imagined it. They did such a great job. I mean, the practical effects were top notch. It was beautiful.
Well, you want to know what's funny about that? I'm so glad you mentioned the sound effects because Danny was saying that he goes, I want people to go like this but while
Yeah.
they're doing that, they still have to hear it. So when they
Yeah.
couldn't get the right sound effects, so Danny and I listened to 4 or 5 different interviews because I want to make sure that they weren't being sarcastic. But even Michael said when he goes, "No, this really happened." He goes, "I cannot get the sound effect right." So he actually was chewing on a counter during ADR additional dialogue recording, and he started chewing on a knife, going like scraping against his teeth
Oh
to
gosh.
get that noise. He goes, "I got to make it realistic because I want people." So, no, oh, come on! Like I can't block their ears
Exactly.
and their
There's
eyes at the same
nothing like
time.
if you saw it a bit, it's gonna stay cemented in your brain and you're gonna hear the noises and it's just gonna play inside of your mind. So there's no running from it, and that is true horror. So applause, applause.
Well, I want to go back to the writing a little bit because I said Danny writes with their friend Bill Hensman, but the other brother Michael, who's more the less down one, it's like they're twins, but Danny is definitely way more outgoing. He does most of the talking interviews, but they said that like when he's writing, like he's writing all over the place. Bill has structure, and then they'll give it to Michael. Michael's like, "This is shit. Get rid of this. Come on." So they work three together. Michael doesn't really write anything, and he helps write, and when he goes, they're always fighting over like, why would you film that? Why would you do this? But they don't want the actors to know what's going on, so they're always texting back and forth like, come on, let's do it like this. What are you filming this for? This is not.
Yeah.
So, but you could tell that the two brothers are. I mean, they always say that twins have that sort of like that not telekinesis, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
one's thinking something,
telepathy
the other
kind
one's
of,
yeah,
yeah.
and you could tell that like when one's thinking something, the other one's almost right on the same page for the most part. And whatever system you're using, I hope they use it for every other movie because it's definitely working. It's a system that definitely works.
Yeah. Yeah, they found their way. I think it's nice like having, two heads are better than one, and having two brothers who really understand each other and they know what they want to create. I think they can bounce those ideas off, and then if something doesn't feel right, they're okay changing it and revising it. And I think that's why the last, their two films that they've made so far are just uh they flow super well, and I think that the ideas are super present. They're creating excellent material together, so whatever they're doing, they keep it going.
And I love the fact too. This is another. I mean, I have so much respect for them, and the more I read about them, the more I hear them talk, get more because after the movie made $91 million, I'm going back to Talk to Me. They're like, you got to come out with a sequel immediately, and they said, I don't want to capitalize on this right now. I want to come out with a great story. I have this other story I want to do first because basically they went right from Talk to Me. They were writing Bring Her Back at that same time, so they finished it. They were promoting it, and then they went right into the filming of Bring Her Back. Let's do this movie first, and the studio kept pressuring them. No, no, you got to come out with a sequel right away. He goes, no, no, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it in our time. We're gonna do it right. And luckily,
Right.
or happily, the studio. I think the studio will say whatever they want to do now, especially because sometimes you get these great one-offs like Orson Welles with Citizen Kane, and then after that, they're like, what the hell happened? Is that all he had in him? So they beat the
Yep.
sophomore jinx with this one. I think whatever they did with
Yep.
Talk to Me, Bring Her Back was even better. It was
Right. Right. They definitely flowed into that film perfectly. I think they both brought a little bit of a different feel. I think Bring Her Back is definitely more of a darker
yeah.
film, definitely a little bit on the grittier side, a little bit more definitely just darker all around. I mean, with the cult, presence and sacrificing and loss, it's definitely a much darker film. What Talk to Me is, I feel like it's not much lighter, it's not much better, but it's a little bit more of a fun film, I would say personally. It's a little bit more of that kind of teenage, what could go wrong with this, haunted ghost possessing hand. So that's, they both different feels, but I think they did a perfect job.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened with that movie because it was going in one direction, and then during the time they were writing it, their cousin's 2-year-old daughter died. And so they
Mm,
were in the hospital, and the whole family was around. And then the last thing that Danny saw was his cousin holding the dead 2-year-old, like laying down in the bed, and that that image stuck in his head. And if people are watching the
yeah.
movie, know exactly what image I'm talking about in the movie where he put that. And so he said it sort of like took a turn where it was maybe one type of horror movie, and then boom, which I love because again, I mentioned I love the fact that he makes dramas where you can empathize with the character, even like the Sally Hawkins,
Mm.
which I want to talk about next because she is phenomenal in this movie. But as evil as she is, she's not really. It's not all black and white. Not everybody's all good. Not
Right.
everybody's all bad. And you could tell when she's doing what she's doing in the movie. She feels really bad about it sometimes, and other times you're like, "Oh my god, what a crazy bitch." Other times like, "Oh,
Exactly.
like I know people that said they were crying at the end because they felt so bad, not only for Allie, not only for Piper, but also for her too."
Yeah, it's a I mean, if that final scene, where she's just kind of there and you know, again, I don't want to get into too much spoilers, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's a very sad, scene. It's something that, again, some people are going to be able to relate with, and at least be able to understand that a mother losing her daughter is one of like the saddest things that could happen. It's super dark, and so when we have those scenes, it's sad, and I can definitely, empathize with that character. But man, she's fucking crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
she's a nut job. I'm sorry. I was like, okay, at least it's over now. This fucking crazy lady, because gee, she did some fucked up stuff. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. I think I
man,
mean it started. I want to
uh,
talk about her character a little bit without giving anything away. But before we do it, and after I heard this, I said, "Oh my god, it's genius." Have you ever seen the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? It's an old movie with Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
I've heard of that one. It's super old film. I do
Yeah,
know that.
50s.
I think the brothers had mentioned that one was
Yep.
an inspiration.
Betty
Uh,
Davis. And if you
yeah.
watch that movie, Sally Hawkins is Betty Davis. And they said that was one of the funnest things they ever did was watching that movie with her because she was doing all the voices and she was just getting into it.
Yeah, you can see that she went into this role ready. I mean, she played a crazy lady very, very well, and she was crazy indeed. She did some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what they said. They never thought they were going to get her. They said, "Oh my God, I mean, she's an Oscar nominee for The Shape of Water, and she's been in so many other. I mean, even Paddington. She goes from Paddington to Shape of the Water. She was in a movie that I loved. I didn't even realize it was her until when I was doing my research, called Blue Jasmine with Kate Blanchett. It's a Woody Allen
Mm.
movie, but it's a great movie. She plays this down and out sister. Kate Blanchett's this little snob that has to move in with her, and Sally Hawkins ends up being the one that's more of a success than her. But it's a great movie, and she in the movie she ends up dating Andrew Dice Clay. it's
Oh,
but I didn't realize that was her. But when they first talked to her, she took to her and she said Danny said she didn't want to be in a genre film. All she wanted to be was in a great movie, and she loved that script. She loved that character, and they said that they have a Bible of all the different points, all the different things that she said. I think this character thinks like this. I think this character would do that. And he says, I still have it. And he says, there was the scariest thing in the world. People like, oh, it must have been easier to make Bring Her Back than it was Talk to Me. He goes, Talk to Me. Nobody had any faith in us at all. Like two YouTubers,
mm,
who cares? Now
right.
I couldn't let down A24, and more important, I couldn't let down Sally Hawkins.
Yeah, at that point, she's giving you 120%. I mean, when you have that to work with,
No,
I feel like it's gonna make things easier. You have someone who's just kind of taking your idea and then just bringing it to another level. I mean, that's got to help to a certain degree. So, and she did her job.
okay. Well, an example of that is he said he would just tell her, make Andy feel left out, lonely, and uncomfortable. And that's all he told her. So there's a scene where it's like, yeah, let's get a selfie together. And they filmed that scene, he said, I think 15 times, something like that. And they couldn't get it right. And then finally she said, hold on. And so there's a scene where she has the picture and all you see is Piper and what's her name in the movie? Sally Hawkins' character.
It's
Lauren.
Laura,
Laura, yeah.
yes.
Okay, so all you see is Laura and Piper, and he's sort of blocked out. And
Like top of
they,
his
yeah,
head.
but they like that's perfect. And then they said for the dance sequence, there's this big dance after the funeral. They're like, let's get fucked up. That was exactly
Yeah.
what Andy said, and they just left the film rolling for a half hour, and then there was a big speaker, and they were just yelling, "Do this, do that!" And they had a table. They call it the table of all these weapons of like silly string, shaving cream, all that. Like, spray this, do this, and they just kept filming. And they said she was so much in the character there's a dead dog, which is hilarious. It's
Oh
well,
my gosh,
but they said
that
they
dog.
have her just film staring at it for 5 minutes straight, doing nothing, just staring at it. She was so
That is definitely psycho behavior to a certain degree, maybe just drunk behavior. But I mean, that's she's setting it up perfectly. It was an awesome scene. That was a great scene altogether. You can tell they were just like having a good time, and it was
yeah.
insane.
Yep. Well, you know what's funny? I watched Talk to Me when it first came out, but then I rewatched it again, getting ready for this show, and there's some similarities. Like they love doing that something like with the Mia, and I can't remember the son's name, but they're in the car singing songs, having a good time,
That's right.
and it's just like they love doing that, and that's what I think that they're what makes these movies so good is that the characters are so well written. It's almost like they're not even acting. It's almost like what a real brother and sister would do, what real friends would do,
Exactly.
and how they would really talk. It's not like they're saying lines like, "What 10-year-old would talk like this?"
Yep, exactly. It's very natural.
Yeah,
I think Talk to Me had a very natural feel. I think looking at the characters and the way they kind of interacted with each other, it felt like, some high school kids in a party. Like you really felt like you were just sitting there in that moment with these kids, and you can't help but be terrified and want to just walk out, but you're stuck there. So they've created the perfect environment for that. It was perfect movie.
yeah, no, definitely. That's why I'm not sure how I heard about that movie. I don't know. Like it was one of those things. Usually when I look at movies, I always go for the ones like I never heard of this. Let me check that out. It's always
Yeah.
like I go to Plainville AMC in Connecticut. I live in, and you need like a golf cart to get to like the theaters that I go to because they always show it in the last cinema way down there, 4 miles down.
Exactly.
And I'm usually only the only one there. And when I got there this time, I said, "Wow, this place is packed. I love it."
Yeah.
And that's why I added their names to my list of like, all right, I got to keep an eye on these directors and these writers. Whenever they come out with something, I'll be watching it. And so the same thing with when I saw Bring Her Back, because I actually saw Bring Her Back the day before. Remember in the day the movie would be released at say midnight on Thursday night because you have to like
Right.
it has to be Friday. For some reason, I don't know how they got around this, but they found a loophole where they can release movies on Thursday now. So I remember I was
Yeah.
doing an interview, and I kept, as I mentioned in the intro, on Facebook, oh my most original movie, and there's a couple of friends that I like. They saw a sneak preview of it, and I said, oh, this is one of the best movies. So I looked it up. I said, wait a minute, Michael and Danny. As soon as my interview was over, I said, I'm going to the movies. It's starting in 25 minutes. I'm going. I ran right out there, and I was so
That's
happy to
awesome.
see it. The theater was packed.
Nice. Yeah. Going into my theater, and you're talking about Bring Her Back.
Yes, this time I'm talking about Bring Her Back.
Yes. So going to see Bring Her Back, I went pretty early on a Tuesday, it being like $5 Tuesday, like at most theaters, they'll kind of have like a Tuesday deal. I expected it to be a little bit, packed there. It was about a week after the film was released, after opening weekend at least. And my theater was pretty full. I was surprised. It was early Tuesday, and there were a lot of people in those seats. So I think, it goes to show people are looking for new horror stuff. They want something new and scary, and they're bringing it. And I think Talk to Me definitely helped. I think that's definitely brought in some of those previous viewers who know they're going to get something A1 quality.
Yeah, and two of my favorite directors growing up were Sam Raimi, who came out with Evil Dead, and Peter Jackson, who had two great horror movies before he started doing Lord of the Rings and King Kong and everything else.
Yep.
One was called Bad Taste, and the other one was called Dead Alive. I remember seeing these movies in I want to say, late 80s, early 90s for him. Sam Raimi was in the 80s. And when they came, all of a sudden, like Lord of the Rings came, King Kong came for Peter Jackson, which I'm so happy for, and even that movie with Michael J. Fox and Dee Wallace, The Frighteners. That was another
Mhm.
great movie they did, or he did. But then Sam Raimi started doing Spider-Man and all these other big budget movies. But what I love about at least Sam Raimi is that he sort of went back to his roots. He came out with a movie called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about where this woman goes to Gypsy and she goes into Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell is
Oh, Drag Me to Hell.
yep,
Yes.
a great movie.
Yes.
So yeah, and he won't give her. She's losing her house and she won't give her a mortgage, and she puts a curse on her. It's such a great movie, and I love
That's
the sense
right.
of. So I could sort of see these two guys doing that too. I don't think that they're going to just stick with what they're doing now. I think that they're going to be making these, have a chance to make these great big movies, but I think they're always going to go back to their
Right.
roots. And they've already said that because somebody asked them, I said, well, you're going to stop doing YouTube? They're like, we'll never stop YouTube. YouTube is how we made ourselves, and they're the people that brought us to where we are right now, and we'll never give up on YouTube. We'll never give up on our fans.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I could see them. I mean, I know they were supposed to work on a Street Fighter movie,
Yeah.
but they didn't get the chance to do that. Which, I mean, doing any video game adaptation films is just hard. It's a big undertaking. I think they're getting better. I think we're starting to get some better stuff now. I love anything video game adaptation wise that comes out in film or television. Most of it's trash, but when you get the good ones, they're worth it. So I really wish they can have an opportunity in the future to showcase some fun action stuff. Their YouTube has it. They've done it before, so I know they can definitely release some nice big blockbuster films and still come back to their horror roots because they're definitely hitting the spot.
Yeah. Well, I've heard two different stories of why Street Fighter didn't go through. One was that they said they didn't want to be the people that ruined it. But then two, I also heard that they just didn't have enough time. It was they were offered it when they were finishing Talk to Me, and then they were going to bring her back right away. And they're also working on a documentary called Deathmatch, which is about wrestling, and they love
Mm.
wrestling. It's not regular
Yes.
WWE wrestling. This is the wrestling where you actually are in
Barbed
cages,
wire
barbed wire
nails.
cages. You're coming out blood. It's not fake blood. It's real blood. They're really getting hurt, and
Yeah.
they love that stuff. I've only seen a couple of their YouTube videos. It's Raka Raka, which is based off of where they live. So I guess it's a suburb of Adelaide in Australia named Paraka.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of their wrestling stuff from the past, and I mean, you can tell that they love it. And they
Yeah.
definitely deathmatch sounds like a lot of what they were kind of doing with like the tables and barbed wire and stuff. So it's very fitting, and I'm glad they're doing that. It sounds like that, they're following their passions. So, when that type of stuff comes out, it's gonna be good.
Well, you know what I love? They were saying that they've been making these films, the YouTube videos, since they were kids, and all the neighborhood kids would come over, and then after a while, they're still wanting to make the videos, and their friends are like, "Aren't we a little too old for this?" I'm like, "Fuck that! Let's make some more movies," and they just never stopped.
Yeah, right on, right on.
Have you ever seen real whatever like deathmatch wrestling? I have no, I think I've heard of it, and maybe I've seen clips, but have you ever watched it?
I've never seen, I don't think like a live event or anything. There's clips all over YouTube with that kind of stuff. So I've seen a bit, it gets pretty extreme, but it's cool. It's definitely cool. And I've seen them, kind of recreated in their YouTube videos. So yeah, there's a little bit of exposure.
Is Do they have it in Japan? So I think a friend of mine who's
Wrestling is huge in
yeah.
Japan. Yeah,
Okay,
there's
yeah.
some huge Japanese wrestling brands out there, promotions rather. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And they said it was they created their own league. It was called PCW, Professional Championship Wrestling, the PCW League.
Nice.
They love that. So yeah, so I don't know what was the actual truth because I never heard them say it. This is what I read. Two different things was one, they were too busy, and two, they didn't want to ruin. Because what I love about them too is that, which I don't know why they would have this, but they said we have big time imposter syndrome. And I said, how can you have that? But they just think that they're not worthy of being where they are, even though they know what to do and how to film.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're coming from YouTube,
Yeah.
it's a lot of just like self-taught stuff, and you're just putting these videos out. When you have a film, it's going to go through a lot of different people. I'm sure a ton of people are going to watch it. Now you're worried about, what these critics are going to think versus just like what your average Joe YouTube viewer is just going to leave in a comment. It doesn't have that same impact. Um, but I mean, for them to just put that out, just keep going. They were meant for it, so it's all good.
Well, they brought up a great point about YouTube because they said first studios like, why are a bunch of YouTubers going to be making a movie? They said, you know what? Every generation puts down the next generation. He goes, I'm sure these big directors from the 70s were putting down the directors of the 90s. So like, oh, we never did digital. Oh, we did film. And it's like, you got to start somewhere. I bet you these big directors that are putting us down right now would be using YouTube if they had YouTube at the time. And he goes, you got
Right.
to start somewhere. And I agree with them 1,000%. It's like
Yeah.
every generation it thinks they're better than the next generation. Like, oh, you didn't go through everything like we did. We had to, you know, walk 10 miles to get to the studio, and
Exactly.
we we had to film everything live because there was no such thing as film back then. Like this.
Yeah, I mean it's so easy now. Like you pick up an iPhone
Yeah.
and you can get a tripod for an iPhone. You can set things up. You can get external microphones if you really need to get some better, audio for your film. But I mean, it's so easy to pick up a camera now and just make stuff. So I think there's that kind of, that not what everyone is so used to, being able to easily put things out. But there's still obviously a skill level to make movies, and to put them out there. But if they're showing, they have the skill set and they've started somewhere and they've, you know, built themselves up, they deserve it. They deserve to be where they're at. And I think now they can definitely have that self-respect for themselves and know, they belong wherever they walk into a room. I think a lot of respect is going to be thrown their way.
Well, Michael Philippou brought up a great point. He said he goes, everybody's on YouTube. It's so saturated now. He goes, when you just got to put yourself above the rest, and they have like I want to say 6 million or maybe even more followers on YouTube, probably even more now.
Yeah.
But he goes, you could do it, and everybody's doing it, but you just got to take yourself and do whatever somebody else is not doing. Try something original, and whatever they're doing, people are watching. People love it. They said one time they woke up from doing a video for wrestling, and they're like, "This got 1 million views. What the fuck?" Like they were just so surprised.
Yeah. I mean, it's with YouTube, anything can happen at any moment.
Yeah.
You can just have the right timing for it and you just blow up. So, I mean, they're still putting out good quality content. So, it's just right place, right time. You have the right audience and they're continuing to grow. And I think that's what's happening with their movies. I think they're starting to get that audience that, you have your horror fans and then you have your people who just want to watch a good movie. And even if they're not into horror, they know that the movie is just good in general. I think that's another important thing. And they're hitting all the aspects needed to have a good film and not only get your horror people, but get your other audience too.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many horror movies that I've watched where did that character just die? Who cares? What was his name again? With their movies, you invest in these characters, you care about them, and then when something happens to them, you're like, oh fuck, I like
Yeah.
that character.
It's so hard. It's so hard. I said bring her back. That was such a hard film with
Yeah,
man, I don't want to say again, I don't want to throw like major spoilers, but the loss of some characters you're just like, why?
yeah,
Like you still get a good ending, but you're still not like fully satisfied because you had characters that you really liked and you were rooting for, and then and then you realize it's a horror film and people gotta go.
what's funny was I brought my girlfriend to see it the first time, and she goes, "No, no, no, that can't be true. Like, no, no, they're gonna turn over. They're gonna be fine." I
Yeah.
said, "No, they're not." She
Yeah.
goes, what the hell? Like she was actually
I
angry. I loved
I
it.
really I really thought there was gonna be a comeback, like rise up moment from our character, but it's unfortunate. But again, like you mentioned, you have horror films where someone just kind of goes and it's a main character and you're like, all right, that
Whatever.
guy's gone, and you forget his name and you forget what his purpose even was in the film, and then you have a character that gets taken away in a good film that builds them up and builds that character, and then you remember, and then you want to go back and almost, try to help them out through the film again. It's just that good.
Yep. Well, another character we want to talk about, or another actress. We talked about Jonah Wren, who played Ali. We talked
Yep.
about, I can't remember his name, but Andy was the brother.
And yep.
First time actor, first time actress Sora Wong. She was
Yeah.
now like, I can't believe that was her first time ever acting. And they said that they
Amazing.
brought her because Michael and Danny were saying they didn't originally want somebody, like they didn't do it just for diversity issues. They didn't do it just to get somebody who was sight impaired to have that in a movie. Like some studios will want just to like, so they
Right.
can fill the quota. They said they actually wanted to be part of the story, and they're like, there's not a lot of 12-year-old girls who are who can't see that want to be actors, and but they brought her in, and they start off with this exercise, improv exercise, and they said she just killed it. They're like, what would this character do if you were this character? What would you do? And she's kept going on, and they're like, you got the job. That's it. You're it.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, she killed the role. It was perfect. It added to the story. Like you can tell that that character and, her being partially blind really added to the story. It made, Andy feel like this true outcast.
Yeah.
And, because, his sister can't see, there's certain things that he's seeing that, he wants to convey to her, but he wants to protect her at the same time. So she just does an amazing job at playing, that kind of like naive, younger sister in a way to what's truly going on. But also when things really start to boil down and she starts to kind of realize what's going on, she goes into panic mode and you can feel it and she shows it, and it's true horror. And you almost feel for her and her disability of not being able to see around her. That's frightening. So you almost step into that character's shoes, and she did an awesome job.
Well, they were saying that what really won them over, and this was not the character saying it, this was Sora Wong, the actor, saying it. She goes, I'm actually glad I can't see because now I won't be able to see all the ugliness in the world. And they're like, you had us right there. They said, I love that. And
Yeah,
so they wrote that character around her, and they said they would do these exercises where the one who played Andy, her brother, they would have a blindfold. He'd walk around. They're like, oh, he was great until this one time he bumped me into a pole. I don't know if he did that on purpose or not. They just like kept on making fun of the guy that could have played Andy. They're just like harassing him. But they said that they had 2 weeks of pre-production, and they were just able to get to know each other, become friends, and that's how they had that great repertoire where they were able to the
yeah,
great chemistry.
yeah,
They were able to
exactly.
get and it was like everybody that I saw interview them said the same thing. It's like you two are actual brother and sister. I mean,
Yeah,
it
true
seems so
siblings.
real.
Yeah.
Like you really care. Like there's so many things I want to talk about, like what they did to poor Andy, but I was getting so angry. It's like, come on,
Poor Andy.
making him look like the villain, and then the sister starting to believe it. Like, come on, this can't
Exactly. That's just another thing that was infuriating with the film, but also it made it a horror film in another way. It's a psychological horror film in that way. So, you have the scary demonic, beings coming out, and then you have this crazy scary, psycho lady who's manipulating this poor young kid who's half adult, half kid. He wants to become an adult and be a guardian for his sister, but also he's still a young kid, so he's not really even sure what those boundaries are, and kind of how to assert himself in this household where he is kind of the kid still.
no.
So I mean, it's poor Andy, poor Andy.
And then, which I love, they brought the backstory too, was because he had one incident when he was 8 years old because he was jealous because the father was married a new wife and she was the stepsister, and he was jealous of her. But then because of that, couldn't have. He couldn't. They didn't want them living together. It's just there's so many great elements. It's not just like, okay, well, your father died, moving here, and it's a horse story. There was a whole different backstory which made you really care for the characters even more because
Right.
there's so much truth. He goes, no, it just happened once. I was 8 years old. That's so much different. Well, if you can make it through 3 months, you can maybe apply for a guardianship. And of
Right.
course, everything that he could try and do in 3 months is going to go crazy. And then they're like, no, you're not getting your sister.
Yeah, that was it's it's disappointing, poor, I just disappointing for Andy to go through everything. And again, you feel for Andy. There's a lot of characters you feel for.
Yeah,
It's definitely a more emotional film than Talk to Me. I would say Talk to Me definitely has its emotional
yeah,
aspects to it with loss. But this one just feels, you feel for everyone all around,
oh, yeah.
like you mentioned before.
Well, speaking of loss, you and I were talking before off the air about this. Is like there's there's a lot of similarities in this movie, and they call this, excuse me, the spiritual successor to Talk to Me.
Yeah.
But the difference that I found is in Talk to Me, Mia, the first scene, she's driving with the young brother,
Yeah.
and there's a dead kangaroo in the road, or a dying
Yeah.
kangaroo, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, just come on, put it out of its misery, just get it over with." And she refused to hit it. She refused to kill it. She was almost like,
Yeah.
and then the whole time was like she's so obsessed with her mother's death and like her father has something to do with it. And Bring Her Back was the exact opposite. Sally Hawkins' character Laura was obsessed with death.
Yeah.
Everything was
Exactly.
all he was going to, and I'm not giving too much away, but going from the scene where the first minute, you want to pet my dog? And then,
Exactly. Like I mean, again, she's crazy in another way, she's just obsessed. She has death all around her.
yeah,
So I feel like, yeah, with Talk to Me, it's exactly that, you kind of have that, I want to shy away from death. Um, can't really, I guess, face the idea of, having to, kill something, after her mother's death. And then you have, on the other hand, Laura that's willing to kill and sacrifice to bring her dead daughter back. So it's kind of these opposites, but in a way they kind of are similar.
yeah,
They're dealing with that loss, and I think, with Mia looking to find her mother
hmm
and being interested in talking to the dead, I think that was kind of that part of it. And then her finally, being able to talk to her mother just kind of created this, we have to go back, we have to, figure out more. And yeah, I think both films are definitely showing that universe is, it's kind of, it's there together. It's, I feel like you can't help but feel like both of these spiritual worlds are connected.
yeah. Well, they even said that they're creating this whole mythology, and it's going to be that world. And he says maybe in our next movie, while the main character is driving down the road, in the background you're going to see Laura kidnapping Ali. He goes, we're going to keep on throwing little Easter eggs in that who watch our movies will see. And one
Yeah.
Easter egg, as I mentioned, that it's not really, well, it's an Easter egg, but nobody would really notice unless you read that the person who played Ali, his real dad, played the dad of Piper and Andy. But
Right.
they loved Sophie Wilde so much, they said, we're going to put you in every movie we have. And she was in Bring Her Back. She was in the ritual sequence. But what happened was they said that the way they edited it, all you could see is her arm and part of her body. And they're like, hey, there you are, right there. So they're like making fun of it, but they said they're going to have her no matter what. It's like, even if it's a fucking arm, we're going to have her in every movie.
She's there, she's present in that universe, at least it's there.
Yeah. And I'm glad because I don't know like how big she was in Australia because as I mentioned before, they cut the budget because they didn't want to get a bigger name actor. They loved her, but I mean, I saw her and I didn't even realize I saw her. But I looked her up and she was in the movie Baby Girl with Nicole Kidman. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that was her. And then she was in a couple other movies that I saw and I never even realized that was her. So I'm glad it looks like she's getting more and more work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good.
The one thing I was surprised too is, well, I'm not really surprised because when hearing them talk, and somebody like I think Jackie Chan said it years ago. He goes, "You haven't made it in films until you've made it in America." But every interview I listened with them and read, every movie they mentioned was an American movie. Like they love the Freddy Krueger movies. They love whatever happened to Baby Jane. They love Scream. They love all these movies, The Shining. They're bringing that up. I never heard like anything big that they mentioned. Like, oh, we love this movie from Australia. Mostly everything was all U.S.
Mm. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, I guess in with horror, we've seen a lot come out of, American big blockbuster horror films. I think, when you think of like smaller stuff, or at least when I do, I always tend to think of Blair Witch
Oh
Project.
yeah,
I think of something like that. And, American made, smaller film. Um, and I think going back to them being from, it's Australia, is it?
yeah,
Got
Australia.
that right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, them being from Australia and being able to do their own smaller films where they are, I think that's kind of nice. I think it's nice that they're showing, their home place some love, and showing what they're capable of doing there. And it's kind of proving that it's not just in the States that they can have some nice things coming out, and kind of do their own representation of horror films.
Yeah. Well, they said they have nothing even similar to an IMAX. They said there's really not a lot of movie theaters, and that's what they love coming to America because, especially Danny. They said Danny is obsessed with films. He watches everything. And another, I'm not sure how much you know about the Korean horror films, but
A little
he,
bit. I know a few. Yeah.
I think my all-time favorite is Parasite because
Parasite. Yes.
that's another movie. He also did The Host. He recently did Mickey 7. Is it Mickey 7 or Mickey 17? Uh, that was a great movie, but
Mickey 17.
Mickey
Yes.
17, yeah.
Yes.
But so that director, but I remember when I saw the trailer for Parasite, I said, what the hell is this movie about? That movie, that trailer did exactly what it was supposed to. It was a teaser trailer, and it gave me no idea what it was about, but it wanted me to see it because some trailers I see the whole, but you could say, like, oh, that's the ending right there. Oh wait, there's the be. I saw the whole movie in the trailer. This movie said, what the hell is going on? I ended up seeing that 3 times in 3 days. I love that movie, and it was funny because when that came out, I said, it's never going to win Best Picture. I would love to see it win Best Picture. Then it won International. I'm like, all right, well, at least it won that. And then Best Picture, like, finally, an award,
Yeah.
a movie that deserves to win an award. I was so happy that
Yes.
that movie won. 'Cause I don't know if you saw that. Did you, Parasite?
For Parasite, I haven't seen that one. There's a few I haven't seen. I feel a bit ashamed. But I've been told so many great things for that film. So it's one I have to watch. I know I have to just get down and watch that film. But yeah, I've heard great things. And I mean it's well deserved.
Yeah.
So
The funny thing was, is some of the other things that they're influenced by, and Danny is obsessed with Xena Warrior Princess. They said that's where
oh
most of they get their energy from, or he gets their energy. He is obsessed with that. He loves that actress, and he loves everything about her, which I think is hilarious. I mean, I knew of it, and when it was on, I maybe caught glimpses of it, but
yeah,
I never really got into it.
right. Now, I can definitely see the energy. The energy is present.
So what we talked about, bring her back. We talked about talk to me. I want to talk about a little bit about the YouTube channel because do you know? I mean, I didn't do too much research on that. Do you know exactly how long ago they started? Like how many years
They've
it's been?
they've started a long time. They've been on YouTube for a while. I mean, years. I've seen a few of their videos, like a bit of like the Halo versus
Yeah.
Call of Duty stuff. They do a lot of like Dragon Ball stuff. So it's big pop culture action video game things. So with the special effects that they've done and the explosions and people getting hit by cars, it all looks amazing. They've always done a good job with that stuff. Like, I mean, some very like big Hollywood looking special effects. We've got to see that a little bit with Talk to Me and Bring Her Back too, especially with some of the car scenes, I guess. Some some people getting hit.
That was another sequence of that film because I knew some. Well, all right. I'm so glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
what you're talking about right there is a perfect example of throughout the whole movie. I mean, I knew what the movie is about. Bring her back. She wants to bring back her daughter, but I kept on waiting for something. It's going to happen right here. Nothing happens. Wait. Oh, yeah. Right here. And then there's a scene where he sees his dead father. Don't let her out in the rain. Don't let her out in the rain. Next scene, she's playing out in the rain with Sally Hawkins. All right, it's going to happen here. Nothing happens. Then all of a
The
sudden, bam!
build up.
I
Yes.
love it. It's just
Yes.
that they are great with suspense. Like, all right,
Build up is
you
amazing.
you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, and then nope, nothing happened there. And then you're like, then you sort of sit back and relax, and boom.
And it just happens.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So that
Exactly.
car was another thing because I knew something was going to happen, and but it happened so quickly. I
It
had
was
no
such a
idea.
fast sequence,
I
and
love
it's
it.
almost that the buildup was there. It's things are unraveling, and then when everything is just kind of unfolded, and it's like, okay, go time to get out of this horror house. There you can feel like, okay, they're there, they're gonna escape, just and then bam, things happen and it's insane. It was so well done. I thought it looked incredible. It was terrifying in its own way. Again, it's just different horror elements they incorporate, and then doing special effects for stuff that is not necessarily like horror related. They've always done the action explosions and car
Yeah.
things, but to show it in this, I mean, it was just a perfect way to kind of add something into the film that just felt it was impactful,
Yeah.
very impactful.
Well, it was, and I'm so glad you brought special effects because there's so much prosthetics done with Ali, especially the couple scenes we talked about. And originally
Yeah.
they said, you know what, you're 10 years old. What we could do is we could say that we can get a stunt man and we can make it say that, like, because of you being the vessel, you look older. We can get a stunt person. And he was like,
Form
nope,
just
I want to do it
changed.
all.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they were going to change the whole appearance. And he goes, nope, I want to do it. And he said he had the best time doing it. Like the counter was made of the chocolate, but it was hollowed out. So it was real. He said the only problem he had is he kept on getting splinters in his mouth, but he was actually biting on it. It just wasn't hard. It was
Uh,
really soft, but it was chocolate flavored. But he said,
uh,
and the two brothers said, yeah, he was amazing. And I guess he's a Muay Thai fighter. He's 10 years old. Muay Thai actor. He's a guitarist. They said this guy's a little Renaissance man at 10 years old.
yeah, seriously. I mean, you could definitely tell he was all for it. They made him look absolutely insane by the end of the movie. I mean, he just looks like a totally different kid. You don't see him as a kid. He is just a being of another planet. I mean, he looks absolutely altered, but it's great. You can still see it in his eyes. You can see that it's that same kid, just in a crazy, demonic, terrifying form. And it shows. And I think it added more to the film. I think it made it uh, even more of a real feeling. Like you're really there and you're seeing this poor kid turn into a demonic portal transfer thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, like one example is when Andy's outside drinking. He looks up at the window. All of a sudden, there's a boom, and all of a sudden, hey, how's it going? But it's just,
He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna eat them. Getting pretty hungry, a little light snack.
but just that the look on his face. He's just,
Yeah.
and he even said like, because I mean, the whole movie it rained and rained and rained and rained. It's like the whole movie is not that. And they said like they had to film those scenes where he was the vessel. His stomach grew and grew,
Yeah.
and so if they had to film it quick because the rain would start to get inside the makeup and then it would make it
Mm.
so much heavier, and then sometimes it would start to fall apart. So it's just,
Uh,
they said it was like that. Those scenes were really hard to film, and Andy said like his toughest scene was the scene where his face is partial in the water and then turns him down. He said because like they kept on saying, keep it like this, keep it." He's like, I'm trying to hold my breath. I'm trying to hold my breath. No, don't move, don't move. And
it's like just drown for a little bit. Just actually drown for just a bit because we have to get this shot. So just
like,
try not to die on set.
really going for authenticity.
Yeah, no, they really did. That was a scene for sure.
Well, the funniest thing too was Sora Wong, who played Piper. She said that when because there's a scene, I'm not giving anything away, is that she wants to drown her, and she said like, "All right, don't blink, don't blink." And she's like, water's coming in her eyes. She's, "No, I told you not to blink," and they're screaming at her. I'm trying not to.
I'm trying to drown better.
They said like that those scenes were probably the most difficult for them. But I am just
Yeah.
looking forward to anything they come out with, everything they come out with. The documentary, I'm not sure when that's coming out, but they said they're like maybe like 75 to 80% done with that.
Nice.
And then they
Yeah, at
said they
that point, yeah, I have to watch that.
and they already said they already want to do something maybe even before Talk to Me. They have this other idea and then maybe Talk the number two and me, they'll come out with the sequel. So
Nice. Yeah. Anything they release in the future, I think it's going to be a must watch. They've proven that, they're releasing quality stuff every time. Uh, Being with A24 now, I mean, it's going to be a huge, a huge step up. Especially with the horror films. Anything that they just put out is going to be amazing. Um, so I mean, I'm looking forward to it all.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just wanted to read some quotes from it because I was saying, like I love their attitude, and they were saying, what is it? It's right over here. The oh, he was. This is what Danny was saying. He goes, man, we have scripts and scripts. We've got ideas. It's to an annoying point. We've got to start making stuff. The bigger ideas, we just get brushed the surface. We're ready to go. Sign us up. And you know, like how excited they are, how all
Oh yeah.
when he was saying that, he is just like jumping all over the place. He goes, I got so many ideas. I can't wait to do this. This is going to be great. And they're like,
That's
and Michael's going like this. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Whatever he says, we're gonna do. That's exciting. I mean, it makes me happy as a horror fan. I want to see more from them. I want to just it made me want to watch more horror films in general.
Mhm.
I want to see more. I want to see, whatever they put out, whatever A24 puts out. It's reignited my horror flame, I guess you
Yeah.
can say.
Well, it also reignited A24 because their last couple of movies did not do that well.
Mm,
But I think the last Unicorn was one, and there was another one that
there
just didn't.
was one, yeah.
Yeah, but they said that this movie, bam, brought them right back into the spotlight, and so they're definitely going to be here to stay. And I'm sure again, all these other big studios are going to be after them. But it's funny because in an interview, somebody said, "Well, you must be making tons of money." They're like, we don't really know. And he's like, you should check me, make sure somebody's not ripping you off. Yeah, we're fine. Don't worry about it. We're good. We're good. Like
Yeah.
they don't even really care about the money. They care about making a good film. That's exactly what.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll come with it. I mean, if I'm sure they got the right people checking the numbers, checking the papers, but honestly, it's gonna come with it. They're putting out the stuff that people want. They're putting out stuff that they straight up just enjoy making. If they have the ideas, keep them coming. The money's gonna come, and I'm sure they're gonna get some bigger budgets. So we're gonna see even bigger and better stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's one more quote I wanted to read because this is what happened when they were what their attorney told them when they were trying to when they told them like, well, you want to do this. I had like way too many notes. 'Cause
Not a bad thing.
no, it's not a bad thing, but like I was trying to when I want to find something, I just because I didn't have that one memorized. Let's see. If I can't find it, I'll go on to something else while I'm looking for
That's
it.
all right.
Actually, all right. Well, I want to talk about some of the things. Oh wait, where is it? I thought I had. Not yet, but all right. Let's talk about. I want to talk about we talked about their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's called Raka Raka. It won Best International Channel, Best Overall at the Online Video Awards, and then the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts Awards. It won Best Web Show. So, and I'm not sure if this was very recently, but I think over the years they came up. I mean, they've won so many awards. So, and I'm not. I have to. I'm going to subscribe to their channel after the show's over.
Yeah, seriously. I don't think they've made a video in a while. I think maybe their last video they were talking about talk to me. Um, but with that, yeah, I definitely know that they're gonna continue posting. Like you mentioned that they said they weren't gonna stop and that's where they started. So no, their YouTube is definitely up there. I don't see them stepping away from that. They have a pretty big platform there. I think YouTube is just a bit restrictive,
Yeah.
especially with like copyrighted stuff. Yeah, it's harder to do. So
Oh yeah, well, I mean, even me, like when I interviewed Dee Wallace from Eating Cujo, I had a clip of Cujo, and I guess it was too long, so they took it off YouTube for like, whoa, whoa,
mm,
whoa, and then I had to either edit that scene down or take that out completely so I can put the interview back up.
yeah, yeah, they're strict with that stuff. So I get it. They have a little bit more freedom, off of the platform, but I'm sure they're gonna want to put some content out there.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, I'm not sure if you saw any of this, but it said that they did a series called Evil Flamingo, which was a rip off of Chucky, which I loved I
Hmm.
loved the first Child's Play movie. After that, it started to get a little stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
But I loved the first one. And then they did another one called, it was 10 seasons they did of their never aired Buffy the Vampire Slayer spoof called Tamuffy. So I don't know. I never saw any of those, but I guess 10 seasons they recorded but never released.
Wow. At least they got the experience.
No, exactly. That's that's exactly what Robert Rodriguez was doing. He was, let's just film as much as I can, get all the experience I can, and it's definitely working for them too because I,
Yeah.
there's a company in America called K&B that's worked all the Robert Kurtzman's the main guy from that, and he's been doing a lot of movies going from Evil Dead to Walking Dead, all these movies, and that's but I don't know who does the makeup effects for their movies, but they should uh they should definitely be winning some awards because how real they make it look is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important. I mean, it's what goes into, the realism. And I mean, Bring Her Back definitely has that. Ollie looks amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what I love too is that they wanted to build the character development. So most movies, you know how like they'll film the ending first, they'll film the middle, and you go from. But they said they wanted to film in chronological order in order for the actors to get comfortable with each other and become like real family members. And so they basically filmed from beginning to end, which most movies don't, which I thought was really
Right.
good too.
Yeah, no, that's nice. And I feel like it went well with what this, movie was trying to do and how they were trying to progress through it. I think the sibling relationship between the two kind of, changes throughout the movie as well. So that was perfect, honestly.
Oh, and after I finally found the quote I was talking about, this is I love this.
Yeah.
They said their lawyer told them that only 8% of Australian films make their budget back. They said, we really don't care. It doesn't matter to us. We're not here to make money. We're here to make a great movie. And that was what they told their lawyer because they're like, you're not going to make any money on this. I think this was during Talk to Me, and which I love because I said $4.5 million it cost to make, $91.6 million they got back. So they
Yeah, I
just
think they
stuck
were
to their
wrong.
guns.
Yeah, I think the lawyer was wrong on that one.
Yeah, I'm no mathematician, but I think he was a little off with the
Yeah, he's
numbers.
a little off there. Yeah. Goes to show you. Really does.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to Sylvester Stallone. When he was broke, he said he barely had money. It was either feed himself or feed the dog. And he wrote Rocky, the script, and they said, well, you wrote the script, but you're no actor. We're gonna have somebody, nope. And he turned down so much money in order to have the script done and him as Rocky. And he stuck to his guns, and now look at,
It's iconic.
yeah.
Most iconic film of all time, or, one of the, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I love the fact like people put him down, but he's got Rocky, he's got Rambo, he's got the
Rambo.
Expendables, so three franchises, not including all these great TV shows he's done. Like there's one right now, the Tulsa King, which is great. It's about the
Mm.
mafia. He's the next mafia, and well, he still might be. He just got out of jail, but I mean, he's done so many. He even did like a superhero movie, which was pretty good. I can't remember what it was
Mm.
called, but so and he does. So I think that like I love hearing stories like that where they believe in themselves so much they're not going to take no for an answer and they're going to turn down
Yeah.
all this money even though when they're starving they have no money to feed themselves. They're like, no, I'm gonna stick to my
Yeah, I
guns. And,
believe in it.
yep. And I think that's what these two are doing too because there's so much. I mean, I don't. It's I'm trying to think of would I be in that situation when people are throwing money at me, like that's
Yeah, it's
pretty
hard.
good. I
You
know
don't
it's
think
hard to
that
turn
you're gonna
down.
get that, you don't think you're gonna get that again. So it's yeah, they've managed to prove themselves. And I think at this point, they've solidified how great, they can kind of put something out there that, maybe isn't part of a, typical formula that you're gonna have out there for your money makers, but they've proved that they can do it. So at this point, we're just gonna keep getting new creative things that we're gonna actually enjoy. So
Yep.
I'm glad they've put their foot down and, asserted themselves in that way. It's going to help everyone.
Yep. Well, I think it's similar to when Blair Witch came out. You mentioned that earlier. When Blair Witch came out, everybody with a camcorder thought they were a writer and director. And all of a sudden, people were telling these
Right.
movies. But I think that it's going to be the same thing with them. All these YouTubers will be like, hey, man, I can make some movies. So probably 90% of it's going to be horrible. You're going to get that 10% like, wow, these guys are great. So
Yep.
I think there's good. I think this is like the next thing where like when Blair Witch came out, hey, I have a camcorder. I'm a filmmaker. Now I'm a YouTuber. I can make a movie too, which I think
Exactly.
it's good and bad. But who cares? Like I wish everybody who wants to make a movie just go for it. When
Yeah.
just try
Yeah.
it.
If you're doing something that you love and you have the right idea, it doesn't have to be horror, but you
Yeah.
do your own thing and come into fruition and have an awesome project that people are going to love.
Yep. And you mentioned earlier about people filming movies on phones. Have you ever seen the movie Anora? It won Best Picture last year.
I'm not.
That's a great movie.
Nora.
But that director, I can't remember his name. He did a couple other movies, and similar to these guys, I said I want to go back and watch all his other movies. He made a movie called Tangerine. The whole movie is filmed on his cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really, and he did another movie called The Florida Project, and there's a couple scenes where it's funny. They didn't have a permit to go into Disney World, so he just grabbed his cell phone, had them going in there doing things, and people thought he was just like with his phone camera filming it, but he was actually filming a movie.
That's hilarious. I mean, at that point, you're in there. It's using your phone. Hey, it's for use. I don't know if you recently saw with 28 years later, the
Yeah.
upcoming zombie film,
Yep.
they did a 20 iPhone camera shot. They connected 20 iPhones on this like piece of plexiglass just to get this crazy wide angle shot. And I'm not sure how that's going to come out, but I'm definitely seeing that movie and I'm excited to see that shot.
Wow. I knew of the movie. I never heard that fact. So that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it looks insane. There's a picture out there of the contraption they made with the 20 iPhones just lined up in this like almost curved kind of shot, and they show this zombie just standing out there in the woods, and it looks incredible. So I can't even imagine what it's going to look like, on the screen.
Well, that's another example of what we've been talking about. Like we're just there's so many zombie movies out there. Do something that's original. I mean, there's so many things out there in zombie, same thing. Oh, I'm coming after you. But
Yep.
dude, and the person that did those movies did something different. It's not the average, ordinary zombie movie that everybody's making
Right.
now. And that's why, and just that shot alone explains like how he's trying to be a little bit more creative and try something out of the box.
Exactly. Exactly.
So who are this is the first time having you on the show, and I love having you on the show. I love actually talking to you about movies because it's funny, like when I talk to people your age, like, oh, I never heard that, I wasn't born yet. But you're the exact opposite. You're like, oh, I know this movie, I know that. And then what I love about you is too, like a lot of times when people ask you a question, you ask people a question, did you like the movie? Yeah, it was good. What'd you like about it? It was good. But when I ask you, you're like, I liked it, and this is why I liked it. This is what I didn't
Yeah.
like, and this is what they should have done better. You actually put so much thought into whenever we have conversations about
Yeah.
movies. I love that. So,
Oh
who are
yeah.
some of your favorite filmmakers?
I mean, big one, Quentin Tarantino. I
Yep.
love Kill Bill, favorite movie of all time. I love action stuff, anything sword fighting, action, that stuff's cool to me. Just Quentin Tarantino is just one that immediately comes to mind. Um, I mean, I can't think of any in particular, like, film wise. I mean, I love horror stuff. Stephen King's writing is amazing. I
Oh
think
yeah.
his film adaptations are just as good. I'm looking forward to The Long Walk.
Yes. Have you read that book?
I haven't, so
Oh,
I've been told, so it's a short story, a
yeah.
part of a collection of
The Richard
stories.
Richard Bachman series when he was
There you
writing with
go.
Richard Bachman. It's a
Yes.
great story. I
Yes,
read
I'm
that
gonna have to
years
get
ago.
that. Yes, yes, it's an older one. I've been told about it. I've read into like the synopsis of it a bit, but I'm gonna have to read that one before watching this, because apparently it's a short story,
Yeah.
so it looks awesome. That's the stuff that I love. Anything that's a good, old story that maybe hasn't had much recognition and can be turned into a good film, that's awesome. I'm super excited for that one.
Yeah, I I didn't realize they were making a movie on that until very recently. I was like, oh my God, this
Yeah.
because years ago I read that. I said this would make a great movie because I'm sure you know what it's about. It's like they
Yep.
have to keep their order to keep walking, and the government's like, if you stop to use the bathroom, go to the bathroom, you're going to be shot. If you fall asleep, you're
Yeah.
going to be shot, and you have to keep walking. And I'm not going to say it, but the ending is classic King. That's all I got to say. It's I don't know if they're going to. I mean, it's an American movie, and I don't think they're going to end it like that. But again, The Mist. Did you see The Mist?
Yes.
All
I've
right.
seen The Mist. Yes.
All right. So I want to talk about that. I think we could talk about that. The movie came out in 2007. When I first
Yeah,
went
it's
to
been a
go see
while.
that movie, I said, I want to take it for the Mist. I hear people walking out, what the fuck? This sucks. I can't believe that. I was like, what the hell just happened? So I read the short story, The Mist. And in the end of The Mist, it's just them driving through the mist, and there's monsters all around, and they just keep driving and driving, and it ends. When Stephen King in the movie, when I saw the ending, when there was like, he had 4 bullets, and he said, well, I'm going to put my kids out of my misery. There's no way we're gonna survive this. So he shoots the 2 kids, shoots the babysitter. He's about to shoot himself, and there's no bullets left. And all of a sudden, then the monsters come and say, "Oh no, I'm gonna die." And it's the government going, "Yeah, we're all set. We killed the last one." No, so, but usually American movies do not go that dark. And
Yeah, they always take the lighter turn for the film. Like usually, like for Cujo, for example,
yeah,
like super dark ending in
yeah,
the book. But mom gets revenge. But
yeah,
um, the film is way different. They end up saving the
yeah,
kid, and everyone kind of lives happily ever after. So you tend to get those endings. So
yeah.
I like that the Mist did that. It's
Yeah.
a horror film. It's dark. It's kind of supposed to be dark, and sometimes
I
it can
loved it.
take those turns. And I thought that was great, but I can understand watching a movie and loving the characters and wanting that survival, and then it doesn't happen. I can understand that. To me, that lets me know you made a good movie and people love the characters and they just didn't want them to go. So
See, exactly. I always say, like when I was doing stand-up comedy, I said I don't care if people like me, I don't care if they love or hate me. I just want a reaction. And the same
yeah,
thing with a movie. When you get a reaction, like when somebody says, "Oh, that person's a real asshole," I know I'm doing my job. Like when an actor,
exactly.
so I love that. And when even the Mist, Stephen King said it. I would never go that dark. He was making a joke about it. But there's that brings me to when I said American movies. A lot of times they're doing remakes of these foreign movies, and there's a movie I can't remember what it was called. It was of the guy who played in the M. Night Shyamalan movie where he has 15 personalities, but there was a Dutch version originally.
Is that
Speak to me, speak no evil.
Glass?
No, speak no evil. Well, no,
Speak no evil.
yeah, no, he was in Glass. That was the actor from Glass. That's why.
I see.
But he was in a movie called Speak No Evil, and in the American version, the Dutch version I saw first, and I said, "There's no way they're gonna end like this." So I went to see the American version the next day, and it's going, it's going, it's going, and then boom, does a 180. I was like, I knew it. They couldn't
Yep.
go that dark. But I love I love the Dutch version because it was realistic. It was real. Like this is probably what would have happened in real life. I'm glad that what happened in the American version did, and it made for a good action movie. But the Dutch version was much more realistic and much more dark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, takes those turns. But yeah, I totally get it. I feel like the American audience can't handle it sometimes. Like I feel like a majority of people are kind of go up in the uproar, kind of like with the Mist.
Yeah.
So it's kind of proven that a little bit. But maybe I think now I think maybe we're in a different era of movies. Maybe people want to see some darker stuff. I think with horror, especially, we kind of want to see some crazy shit go
Yeah.
down now. Maybe we don't want to play safe anymore.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about the movies in general, but first I want to go back to Quentin Tarantino because I'm a huge fan of Quentin Tarantino. He used to get me mad, and I'll tell you what I mean because like I love the movies of the '70s just like he does. He's heavily influenced. He and Roger Avery used to work at Video Archives, and they would watch all these foreign movies long before Laserdisc, long before DVD, long before VHS, long before
Yeah.
Beta. And then he comes out with these movies, and they're basically just scenes of movies that he thought probably nobody would ever even hear of until all of a sudden now and so I'm like, he's just ripping this off. He's just ripping that off. And then the more I watch it, I realize that he does take scenes and characters like you mentioned Kill Bill. The character from
Yeah.
Daryl Hannah is a character they call her One Eye. They call me One Eye. And if you saw it, it looks exactly like her, it acts just like her. But I'm like one of these people where I watch it 2 or 3 times, and the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it, the more I like it. And so that's what it's like. He doesn't get me as mad as he used to with that. But sometimes I get mad. Like at one time, like I had the original Inglourious Bastards on DVD, and
Nice.
I actually interviewed Bo Svensson, who was in that movie, and he was in the remake, but he was part of like the movie within the movie, so he wouldn't have a
Sure.
big part. But he was on Howard Stern's show, and he goes, "How do you come up with this?" He said, "I don't know. I look at a blank piece of paper, and it just comes to me." I'm like, "I have the original movie right here." Then I realized that his version of Inglourious Basterds basically just has the title. He wrote the
Mm.
whole movie. So I am a huge fan of him, and I am a huge fan of what he does. I think my favorite, I don't know, like I have different ones. I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought that movie was great. I don't know if you saw that one.
Really? Yeah, that's the one I actually haven't watched from Tarantino. It's the one Tarantino film, or one of the few that I haven't seen. I Jackie Brown is
Oh yeah,
one, the earlier one.
yeah. That's the only
But
one that
yeah,
was not written by him. That was written by another author.
there you
It
go.
was originally
Okay, so
called
yeah,
Rum Punch.
there you go.
Yep.
So yeah, I haven't watched Once Upon a Time. I think it's one of those movies where it doesn't seem like it has as much action as some of his other films like Hateful Eight or Kill Bill and Glorious Bastards. So to me, it's just it was a little bit harder to get into that one and want to sit down and watch it. But it's just like I know I will at some point. It just hasn't been like a must watch for me.
Yep. Well, it's funny because he says he's going to do with 10 movies and then he was going to start writing. So he wrote a novelization of that film. And I read the novelization as well. The novelization is basically that movie with deleted scenes that I've seen on the DVD. So it's basically the whole thing that I've seen. He filmed the whole movie, but he wrote some of the stuff he cut out. But I know what you're talking about with dialogue because for people who don't know, most of the people watching the show know what Grindhouse is. It's these exploitation movies from the 70s that they would show on 42nd Street in New York. So they wanted to pay homage, he and Robert Rodriguez. So they did all these, he did Planet Terror, that was Robert Rodriguez,
Yep.
and Quentin Tarantino did Death Proof. So originally it came out as one movie. And it started off with these fake trailers. It was great. Machete was a fake trailer, and that became a real movie. And then Robert Rodriguez came up with Planet Terror, was just nonstop action, blood, gore, gut, everything. It was great. And then all of a sudden, you go to Death Proof, and it's just dialogue, 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 dialogue. And everybody is just like, what the fuck? What the? And people were saying this at the screen. Oh, I'm so bored. I thought it was boring at first, but then they released the movie separately, and I watched it again. And I was able to appreciate, like I said, with a lot of his other movies, the second and third time. I've watched that movie so many times, and I love that movie now. But it took me a couple times, and when it came right after Planet Terror in the theater, people was just like a roller coaster ride to the kiddie park.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly. Maybe one should have started
yeah,
before the other,
yeah,
but yeah, I totally get it. It's with dialogue, that's all Tarantino films. You
yeah.
get a crap ton of dialogue in the beginning. You're getting to know those characters, uh, but you're still getting that action, and then finally, really at the end, you have like that big action, huge moment. Like I think of Hateful Eight, that movie is just filled with dialogue, and then that ending scene just kind of happens and things really start to kind of spiral out of control. So not every Tarantino film is that way, but again, the dialogue is definitely a big part. But you learn to love it. You watch it again and again, and you start to appreciate, the character building, and you start building in that Tarantino world. So it's a big part of his stuff. I definitely appreciate it now more too.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I love character development. And an example of that is The Shining. Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Yes, absolutely. Love it.
I've had people say, "Oh, like there was a DVD, and they're like, can we fast forward to the good part?" I said, what do you mean fast forward to the good part? This whole movie is such a slow burn, great build up,
Yes.
and then bam, the payoff. I
Yes.
love characters, and it's just I don't want to just. I mean, I can watch a movie that's all action. After a while, I'm like we talked about before, some of these other movies, like, yeah, who really cares? I'm bored. I want to be able to care about these characters. I want to hate these characters. I want to
Yep.
love these characters. And when you what some people might consider slow, that's just them, you getting to know the characters and what they're going through, why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
And I thought Stanley Kubrick, he was a master of that. Like I don't know if you saw any of his other movies. He did let's see, Clockwork Orange. Did you see that one?
No, that I heard that's a classic. I've been told to watch that
You
one.
gotta.
Yep.
You know what we gotta do? I gotta have you back on the show. We'll do like a Kubrick night. We'll do like maybe
Yeah,
we do
I'm
the
gonna
Shining
have
Clark.
to. I'm
Lolita's
gonna have
another
to.
great one too. It's just a great character development, and then he did a. Uh, there's several other movies that I want to go over with that, but
Yeah.
I think if we were going to discuss Kubrick, I would do Clockwork Orange and The Shining, because those two are
Oh
just.
yeah, I
I
love
think
The Shining, Clockwork Orange. I have that on my list now, so I'll definitely give
well,
that a watch.
obviously Full Metal Jacket's another one too that he did.
Love that
Yeah.
movie. Great movie. Great movie.
The only thing about him is funny. Like, I want your opinion on this because I've interviewed people that worked with Clint Eastwood, and they never worked with Kubrick. But with Clint Eastwood, he was like, "I want authenticity. I want to seem genuine. We're just doing one take. We're moving on." Kubrick, he did 150 takes on The Shining. I met Malcolm McDowell, who played in Clockwork Orange. He said there was one time he scratched his cornea, but he wouldn't let him stop. They did over 75 takes. I think that's a little too much. I mean, if you can't get it in 10, 5 to 6 takes, don't even bother.
Just
It's like,
probably drop it at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sort of agree with Eastwood's attitude. It's like, you know what? That's good enough. Let's just move on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff can go into, post film, editing, and there's things that can be worked around. It's a little intense. Um, I think there's a level between like appreciating the intensity of a director and appreciating what they're, willing to go through to
Yeah.
get a perfect shot or to make the perfect movie in a sense. But sometimes it's like, it's not totally necessary. This isn't something that's going to be groundbreaking for the film or is gonna change it exponentially. I'm sure it's something that, really, who gives a shit, you know.
Exactly. Uh, what's your opinion on Spielberg?
Spielberg, I mean, he's the classic filmmaker. I mean, I guess there's not much. Is there much to say about Spielberg? I
Well,
don't
for
know.
me, I'm going to tell you why I brought him up because I grew up, I was born in 68 and 75. Jaws was one of the first movies, not
Yeah,
first movies, but one of the first horror movies I ever saw. And I saw it 17 times in the theater. My father kept saying, "Hey, you want to go to school tomorrow? You want to see Jaws instead?" It was just, and then the teacher called my house because they were like, "Oh, were you sick yesterday?" "No, we went to go see Jaws." "I told you to lie. I told you to lie." I mean, so it's just that I was obsessed with that movie, but then Close Encounters came out. That was one of my favorite movies. Then went back and saw Duel, which was a great TV movie that he made, and they released it in the theaters, became so popular.
Mm,
But I think what happened with him, and this is why I wanted your opinion on this, because
yeah,
you're younger than me. You grew up more of the movies where he was more of just like the popcorn audience. Like, let's make a movie
yeah.
that
That's
everybody
exactly
feels
it.
good. And so I think like when he
That's
first
exactly it.
started, he did Sugarland Express, he did Duel, he did Jaws, he did Close Encounters. Those were all when he was still hungry. He was still learning his way through Hollywood. And then afterwards, which he still makes a great movie, he's the master of filmmaking. But after a while, I think he's just sort of like going through the motions. I don't think there's really, I mean, obviously Schindler's List was something he's always wanted to do. And he even said years ago he wanted to do it, but he wasn't ready for it. And he was then. But for the most part, it's just, let's put this out.
Yeah. For me, I mean, it's like when I think Steven Spielberg, obviously like Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
ET, the big movies, and for those, I mean, they're iconic in themselves.
Yeah.
You can't doubt it. He has a ton of movies, a ton of freaking
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's just so many. Like I keep thinking of more. Like I brought it up on my screen here, and it's like one after the other. Hook, Indiana
Yeah.
Jones, even Saving Private Ryan, another huge war film. So I mean, yeah, he makes fantastic films. I can't doubt that. I think for you, like watching his earlier stuff and getting to see that, like, um, that hunger and wanting that big time. For me, it's I'm used to more of the iconic, out there, super popular stuff. So that's kind of what I know.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. That's what, and you know what's funny because a lot of, I talk about this with a lot of filmmakers. What makes I mean, there's so many components to a movie and everybody does their part, but without music, the movie is
Oh
nothing.
yeah.
John Williams is my all-time favorite. Without John Williams, he's the one that got me into classical music because when I was young, my brothers and I would all buy the soundtracks. I would buy Close Encounters, and the other brother would buy Star Wars, the other brother would buy Jaws. Then we'd swap them. So I grew up getting all the soundtracks. And John Williams, like I always say, it's like when you're crying during a movie, when you're jump at a movie, when you're scared, it's not the movie itself, it's the music.
It's the music, yeah. It moves you.
Yeah. So I think that like, and he's been working with John Williams ever since, I want to say Jaws might have been his first movie that he did with him. And I think he's worked on every movie with him since then. So I
Yeah.
think he's a big part of the Spielberg
Oh yeah.
success. Yeah.
Definitely. The sound is there. Like when you hear that Spielberg movie sound, like it all kind of sounds the same in this
Yeah.
weird way where you get that same feeling, but it's just, yeah, it's you don't have Spielberg without John Williams. So his music is top tier.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I saw, I was doing an interview with a composer. So I do, doing a lot of research. There's a documentary called, I forgot what it's called. It's Score. It's called Scores.
Yeah.
And they had, and they showed E.T. like with the bike scene where he's riding across the moon, over with the moon in the background without music. Oh my God. Then they show it with the music and it just comes to life. You're
Yeah.
happy, you want to jump up. It's just, it brought so, and even Spielberg, like I said, what's funny? What I said before about all these the popcorn movies and all that, you brought up so many great movies I almost forgot about because, like you said, he's had such a long and storied career. It's like, wow, I forgot all about Saving Private Ryan. I forgot all about this. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of maybe like some of the movies in the last couple of years, but I cannot put him down for anything. I mean, he proved himself, and he doesn't really have to
Oh
prove anything
yeah.
to anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. When you see the name come up, you know what kind of movie you're kind of getting into. You know what he's gonna put out, and most of the time he doesn't disappoint.
Yeah,
So it's always a good time.
he knows what people. And what I love about him too, and I'm happy he did this, was they originally offered him Spider-Man. He goes, that's just not me. I can't make that movie. And they gave it to Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is all about Spider-Man. To
And
me,
he
that's,
killed it.
yeah, I was gonna say, to me, that is the best. I'm,
Yeah.
as I mentioned to you off the air before, I'm sort of superheroed out because there's so many superhero
Nope.
movies and they're all the same.
I
I love
agree.
Deadpool, and that's what I watch
Yeah.
that. But Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst. I love that one. I loved, even people were talking about the last one, and I love the last one. It's like, was it singing, not singing in the rain? There was a song that they were singing. He's like dancing in the rain, but it's just
Is the raindrops keep
keep
falling
falling
on
on
my
my head. Yeah.
head?
So people are like, "What the hell is this?" But I grew up watching Sam Raimi movies, and he always, I mean, even he said like during Evil Dead, if you watch Army of Darkness, his
Mhm.
biggest influence are the Three Stooges, and if you see that, it's he's a lot of slapstick in his horror movies,
Yep.
which I love.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it shows, but I thought it was great. I think now looking back at the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, I think everyone can kind of agree they've aged very well.
Yeah,
And we're kind of in the years of the superhero,
yeah,
especially with Marvel. And like you said, everyone's kind of superheroed out. We've kind of seen the whole superhero formula get played over and over again. And when you watch the original Spider-Man movies, it feels different. You get a different kind of superhero film. And I think that's because of Sam Raimi being able to make those films and separate himself from the standard Marvel, Disney kind of stuff we're unfortunately getting now.
yeah. But that being said, and you're the one that introduced me to this, another great director, another great writer that I've watched for years. He was part of Troma, which is this low budget. They make these low budget horror movies. Lloyd Kaufman's his name, but the director I'm talking about, he was a writer for them, is James Gunn. He's coming out
James
with a new
Gunn.
Superman.
Yes.
I watch
Yes.
anything that guy does. Made, I mean, I don't know how much you saw Slither, the Belko Experiment. There's one, I can't, help me with the name of it, but it was like if Batman was, no, sorry, if Superman was evil.
Yes,
Brightburn.
Brightburn.
Brightburn. That was
Brightburn. That was
phenomenal.
awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And you know what I
Yes.
love about that is he got fired, which is the stupidest thing, for a tweet 10 years before an email, and from Guardians of the Galaxy. So he made that movie with his brother, and he wasn't even going to make that movie. But then, like, the cast says, well, if he's out, we're out. And they're like, all right, right. So I'm so glad that he actually got his job back because he shouldn't be getting
Yes.
fired for email 10 years before.
Yeah, especially with like the whole cancel culture
Yeah.
thing now, you know, it's just a big part of that time too. I
Yeah.
think it was like really, really big during that time.
Yeah.
But I mean, James Gunn is known for making raunchy stuff and crazy,
I
funny stuff,
love
you
it.
know, so he's been able to make some great content for not only like the DC you know, Marvel kind of stuff, but also still being able to do you know, kind of off things like Brightburn, for example. Awesome
Yes.
movie. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he worked on a video game too a
Probably.
while. I think it's this is I want to say it's Lollipop Chainsaw was the
I
name
never
of
heard of
it.
it, but I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty much a I want to say James Gunn worked on this. It's Yes, it's a zombie game with a hot cheerleader babe who has her boyfriend's head attached to her, and she just goes around with a chainsaw and it's hacking zombies, and you know the zombies call her a bitch. Like it's insane. It's an insane game, but it's James Gunn. So his mind is out there, but he makes great stuff. So
Well, if you saw the stuff from Trauma, I mean, the one you would probably at least heard of if you haven't seen it, it's called Toxic Avenger.
Toxic Avenger, yeah,
So he worked on movies like that, and like Sergeant Kabuki Man. There's so many movies that he's done that are
yeah,
hilarious, but they're fun. So yeah, he definitely has that dark, warped sense of humor, which I love. And that's the reason I'm bringing him up is because he's directing the latest Superman, and
yeah.
this is the first time I've wanted to see Superman since Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks great. I if you know, with again, superhero stuff, I'm getting tired of it. I'm pretty superheroed out.
Yep.
But this looks great. I think DC needs some good content out right now. DC needs some life, and I think this movie looks awesome. I'm just hoping they don't uh overfill it with other superheroes that they're trying to kind of introduce into the film that they've shown in the trailers. But I think it looks super promising, and I really hope they continue this kind of universe for DC because they need some life.
Oh yeah. Did you see Justice League?
I did. It was okay.
Yeah, I
I
was
know they did
bored.
the Snyder cut for that, and I know a lot of people appreciated that one more. It's just super long, so
Yeah.
and like, and if the movie has to be 4 hours for you to actually enjoy it, at that point, you didn't do a good job. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't need
no.
4 hours of content.
That's why I asked you that because I know everybody, people that whenever I say that movie sucked, you got to watch the Snyder one. You got to watch the deleted. And I said, I'm not watching another 3 4 hours of this.
I
I
can't.
can't.
It was enough with the first one,
Yeah.
and you know we got slop even before that. Batman versus Superman was terrible,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
terrible film. So getting this one didn't feel any better, and then to have to tell me to watch an extended version of it in hopes that maybe it's better, I think I'll pass. I'll pass on
Well,
them.
I went to Batman, Superman. The funniest thing, they want to kill each other. Within 10 seconds of the fight, Martha. Okay, we're friends again. What the
Like,
hell
how'd
was
you know
that?
that name? That's my mom's name, you silly goose. Let me get off here and pick you up here. We're okay. Like,
Uh,
no thanks.
I
I'm
almost
good.
I almost wanted to walk out right there. It's like, oh my God, I sat through this just for that.
Such a walkout moment. Yeah.
Yeah,
And already it was super boring even before that. So,
yeah. That's why I'm, as I mentioned before, just like you, I'm getting super hurt up. But Deadpool, I'll still like because it doesn't take itself seriously at all. It knows
yes.
that a lot of people think like we do, and it makes fun of that, and it makes fun of
Yes.
everything. And
It's
there's so many
perfect.
inside jokes, which I love.
Exactly. Yeah, it's perfect. Deadpool Wolverine, awesome film
Yeah,
too. So if they make another Deadpool, which I'm sure they will, or he'll be featured in another Marvel film,
yeah.
keep that going because everything else not that great, but Deadpool killed it.
Well, I had a great time talking to you. Is there anything right now, any other films, any other directors, any other filmmakers that you want to talk about before we leave?
I mean, if I can end it here just to bring it back to talk to me
Oh, please, that's perfect.
and bring her back, I want to say awesome films. I very much look forward to what the Blue Brothers decide to release next. whether it be Talk to Me Too, or if they want to put something else out, or their deathmatch documentary. Gonna have to see that. But if anyone hasn't seen Talk to Me, or you haven't seen Bring Her Back, please watch it. Even if you're not into horror, which most of your audience, I'm sure they are,
I'm sure they are, yeah.
but anyone who really isn't, or you haven't really considered watching it, or if you're still thinking about watching it, please do. It's amazing. It's reinvigorated my horror my horror flame, like I said before. So I will be watching Hereditary.
Yes.
I will be watching Midsummer, and I definitely want to go back and watch some other horror films. And I'm sure we're coming back again.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love it. And Ari Aster is the director and writer of both Hereditary and Midsummer. Both movies. I personally liked Hereditary better, but the second what
Yes.
you said, as I mentioned in the intro, the Philippou brothers are becoming my new favorite creative team. I will watch anything and everything they do. Because I love the fact, I love their passion. I love that they put so much thought into everything they do. They're not just putting out content for the sake of content. They turn down so many offers. They turn down to do a sequel. So like, you know what? I don't want to do it just for the hype. I want to actually get a good story. So let's take a break on that. So I highly recommend it, just like Lewis did. Watch Bring Her Back. I would watch Talk to Me first. You don't really have to.
Yeah,
They're not sequels, as they call
I'd agree.
a spiritual successor, but it's
Yes.
all within the Philippou world, as they said, and you're going to see
Yes.
little Easter eggs. And the more and more you watch your movies, the more you're going to notice. So I highly recommend it. Lewis, got to have you back on the show. It was so much fun talking movies with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. I'll be happy to be back, and hopefully have a little bit more film horror knowledge under my belt. We could talk a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about too is I mean, my last one was with James. I mentioned it was the cartoon heavy metal, and it was Escape from New York. So I don't only love horror movies. A lot of times we'll go to that, but if there's a movie there's so many different genres that I love. So anything you want to talk about, come on the show and we'll talk about it.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, let us know in the comments what you guys want to hear about. If there's any stuff that you think I should watch, or for horror stuff, let me know. I definitely need some suggestions. So I'd love to talk more.
I say start out with Parasite, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and
Okay.
those two movies right there. We'll start out with those two, Parasite and
All
Baby
right.
Jane.
All right. There we go. I'm gonna have to watch them now. It's perfect.
All right, well, that wraps up the latest episode of Real Talk. A huge thanks goes out to film aficionado and friend Luis Ortiz for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to be a guest on my show. Thank you very much. I also need to thank editor extraordinaire John Bristol, the award-winning Element Productions, for always doing a superb job editing this show each and every week and making it available to all on YouTube and Patreon. I am also extremely grateful to Rob Bull and Dale Coles for all they do to make my show available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, as well as a cable station in Connecticut. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.